Good evening, everybody. If you're tuning in, you know what time it is. It's Sunday, 7 o'clock. Time for just hanging out and having a chat about the stuff that's gone on this week. And with President Trump in office, always a ton of stuff to talk about. And it's it's a good time if you're a conservative to feel uplifted. I mean, I can wake up with a smile lately to where used to I'd wake up and think about what kind of bullshit are we going to have to deal with today. Right now, I'm feeling very positive. I mean, we have a bright future so far, and they're trying to derail it. They're trying their best to derail it. So far, it ain't working. Slowing the process down in some places, but even a lot of that stuff's being overturned quickly. So these activist judges and these judges that are doing this, that are defying what is basically common law, uh, if you know what I mean, they're not doing the job. They're basically being activists on the bench, and that's not what judges are hired to do. Judges are hired to interpret the law and pass down judgment. The stuff that they're doing right now is all emotional and party driven. So a lot of people think there's nothing you can do to a judge, which you can get a judge impeached, and the judges that are found that should be investigated and found that they're doing things on the bench that it goes against what they took an oath to do should get impeached, or worse, depending on what the egregiousness of the offense might be. So, saying that, it's a good time to be a conservative. And I've seen people who are skeptical uh, of President Trump, and maybe they're skeptical. Like I've seen people, um, conservatives, that have said some bad things about, like Pete Hegseth, about his speech over in Europe at the Munich security meeting there. Honestly, I watched the speech and I thought what it is, him and JD uh, Vance both went over there in their respective meetings that they were involved in, basically gave Europe a come to Jesus talk. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, uh, but I think instead of America apologizing for being who we are, which is what's been happening, it happened during Obama had that famous apology tour where he went around the whole world and basically apologized to every leader, uh, you know, of every foreign government uh, that we deal with. And Biden, he didn't really apologize for anything, but he also never pushed back on anything that a foreign country did against us. So it's good to have people who represent us in a strong fashion. And like I said, give the rest of the world a come to Jesus talk. And I titled this live stream tonight as "There's a New Sheriff in Town," because I've been saying that all week when I've been involved in live streams and interviews. Uh, Whenever we talk about something going on, whether like in the past, we always know that if a politician or somebody did something wrong, and we all knew that it was wrong, we knew nothing would be done about it. Nobody would be held accountable. Uh, but there's a new sheriff in town. I believe, I don't know if you guys believe or not, that something may actually get done to some of these people. And I'm not saying they'll see jail time, but they might lose their jobs, and which is a lot of things. That's in some cases that's the best we can hope for, is the fact that they lose their job. So you know, it'd be nice if that happens. Um, what do you guys think? I mean, it it's a good thing, and I almost want to try to go down the list of all the things, all the people basically that could be facing criminal charges. And I've talked about this a couple times this week. Um, I kind of have a thing for people like AOC to be held accountable for, because she and her squad basically has been at the forefront of so much social damage in this country that it's not been good. And the lies, they the constant lying, and nothing ever held. And here's the thing: when you're a politician, you're allowed to lie. They always talk about misinformation, and that things should, these citizen journalists should be censored, because they used and passed on misinformation and all this. But if you've ever watched any hearing, like the Doge hearing that's been going on, uh, when they get their 5 minutes and they want a grandstand, and they list their bogus list of things that they say. Thing about it is, they have no facts of what they talk about. They just give their opinion on what's in the hearts and the mind of the people doing the job. It's like when they're firing back at Elon Musk over all this. Uh, Basically, they're trying to say the richest man in the world is trying to get rich off the U.S. taxpayer. Come on. If he asked his banks to bring all the money that he has to his house so he can count it, we probably wouldn't see him for 5, 6 years, because it would take him that long to count his money. I don't think that his motivation is making a few more $1 million off the U.S. taxpayer. And then, they try to, I had like Rachel Maddow tried to make it a big deal that these multi-million dollar contracts that Elon Musk has with the government, and that it's because of his buddy Trump. And then she had to retract her statement because she was going to get sued for defamation, because those contracts were actually made between Elon Musk and the Biden administration before Trump was ever president. So, but when you hear a politician talk about this very thing, they don't have to retract their statement. They don't have to worry about getting sued. They can just sit up there and lie. That's got to change. It's like I've been looking a lot about, and I know I'm rambling on, I'm jumping all over the place, but things come to mind and I want to talk about it. You see on the internet all the time, like on X or even YouTube, they like to list what the politicians were worth when they started in politics and what they're worth now. And like, I'll go back to AOC, who was a bartender struggling to pay her student loans less than 8 years ago. It's now worth, and there's a debate between what she has and what she's worth. Some people like to argue that the $29 million tag that they put on her is exaggerated. It's only 10 million. Okay, so we all know she's not bright. She's not no financial genius, and she is worth 10 million plus in less than 8 years in government. How? That's what I want to know. When you look and see what these people are worth before they start in the government, start working for the government, what they're worth today. How? If it's legitimate, some people start businesses and they have spouses and stuff that they have businesses with that they make money outside of government. But let's be honest, damn near all of Congress is millionaires, Republicans and Democrats. How? I mean, it's the only group of people that is involved with whether a corporation or a line of products or whatever, because of regulations, good or bad, for that industry, they know in advance. So they know when it's best to buy stocks. They know when it's best to sell stocks. It's the only group of people in the country that can do basically insider trading and not be held accountable for any of it. And a lot of them will say, well, I'm not the one doing it. But yet, if you check their family tree, somebody in their close proximity in their family, whether it be a spouse or a child or a brother or a sister, tend to be extra intelligent now when it comes to when to buy and sell stocks. We all, if you sit back and look at the whole picture, that's bullshit. But they throw it in our faces as with that old rules for thee and not for me mentality. It's like when they tried to get in the doors of the Department of Education the other day, and they were flabbergasted that somebody in security would not allow them in because they said they were taking no meetings with anybody, and that's the people inside that were running the Department of Education right now. That they didn't want nobody in, and Congress people were flabbergasted that they got stopped at the door, and they did that old, "Do you know who I am?" I hate when people do that. And the security guy didn't give a shit. He's doing his job. They tried to demonize him, but they just couldn't. They couldn't. They tried to get under his skin, and it didn't work. So kudos to that man. He did his job, and he did it well. And those people went away without their spotlight gotcha moment with their fake rage, their fake anger. And let's be honest, if you watch that uh, press conference they had last week, where each one of them got and up on the podium, and boy, was there a lot of cursing in that press conference. It's so funny how they talk about when Trump says a few curse words every now and it's horrible. It's not what we are as Americans. It's exactly what we are as Americans. So many of us curse. So it's it's all fake. It's all misinformation. They are the only ones that can get away with this without having any consequences until now. Why? because there's a new sheriff in town. So, hey, Joe, what you got there, buddy? Oh yeah, no, I'm exactly. You're. I am suggesting that the people in Congress are crooks, left and right. This is why a lot of your Republicans are really wanting to vote against Trump, but they feel like it's political suicide right now. But they don't want to vote his way. They want the things to be as they were. They want that money slid back to them through the back door. They, I mean, they have developed such a system, and it's taken decades to do, but they've got so many ways to strip the American taxpayer of their money. And everybody always says that, oh, we need to balance the budget. We need to balance the budget. They campaign on it. But then they act like there's no programs can be cut. It's like they're all, if any of these programs get cut, what is it they go to? Somebody may die. Who? How? What programs, other than the essential stuff, and there's a lot of fraud in the essential stuff. And let's be honest, that's all basically Elon Musk and them are going after is the fraud, the waste, and the abuse. Yep, John, they line their pockets. That's right. And that's all politicians, it seems like, not all, I can't say all, but it seems like, I'm going to say 80% of Congress, House and the Senate, get into politics for a couple of reasons. And, you know, it's funny that they call the president a narcissist, but they're all narcissists. They all are. They like being that person, that guy, that girl, that people that they go up to and you know, you're supposed to respect them, and they like that respect, and they also like the money. So they get into politics for the power, for the recognition, and for the money. I believe those three things is what motivates 80% of these people. The other 20% get in it to hopefully try to improve the lives of their fellow Americans. But even now, that 20%, how many of those are cowards? They don't want to stick their necks up and have a chance that it might get lobbed off. Because you know, when you go against the grain, there's some powerful forces in our government that make sure that you don't succeed in that, and worse, actually, you know, you may never see the light of day again. And let's be honest, our government is definitely capable of doing that. We have evidence now that we always knew it, but we have evidence now that they've done it to our own leaders in the past. This is not what this country is supposed to be led by. The government that we have in place now is not what our founding fathers intended it to be, the way it is today. What do we do about it? President Trump is a good start, but he can start the race to clean it up, but he's not going to be there to finish it. So we got to be more diligent on who we put into power to speak for us, to defend us, to help us keep this country great. That shining city on a hill. And a lot of the stuff that it takes to get back to that is hard conversations. Our politicians are cowards. The ones that are not in it for the power, the recognition, the money. They learn real quick when they get there. It's like take Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy, in my opinion, is a stand up, want to do it for the people type politician. But he got out of it. Why? Because he seen that it was a dog and pony show. No matter how hard he tried, he could not make a difference. He felt like he could make a better difference for his state if he just left Congress. That's sad because we need more people like Trey Gowdy. What's up, Carl? Told you, Carl, all I do is ramble on, brother, on my Sunday nights. Some of it may be interesting, a lot of it ain't. It's just stuff that comes to mind, and then I'll jump from one subject to the next, and I'll rotate it back to the original subject eventually. But things are looking good, but we got a long way to go. We've just now been able, because this is a horse race. We've never been able to get in the race because we had the gate locked on us. So we didn't have a pony in this race because we couldn't get out the gate. But there's a new sheriff in town. He opened the gate for us. He's put people in place that's going to get this race going. And we are in a race to get back the fabric of America to the place that we all were told when we were growing up of what America is and what it should be or what it's supposed to be. And we've lost our way. I mean, basically. And let's face it, when you're trying to make a living, raise children, it's hard to risk. And you've seen since the J6 deal, you risk your freedom, and in some cases you risk your life, sticking your head up, trying to make a difference, when all people want to do is just earn a living, be given a fair chance to live in a free, safe society that the American people have a say-so in. So let's see how that goes. It's future's looking bright. So I think, like me, I'm almost 60 now. I have no fear. I'm not worried about it. I guess I could have been, I probably was just as big as coward or naive when I was younger, raising kids, working every day, just trying to get by. And, I feel like I tried to do the right things, but also I could have been part of the problem because I would see stuff that I didn't agree with and I would complain about it to my friends and family. But I didn't go to my state politicians and become a pain in their ass. I didn't call my senator to complain about stuff. I didn't do any of that. I made my complaints to my friends and family. So maybe I was part of the problem too. But I'm past that. I got no fear. I'm willing to be. They always say the people who are when you in a fight, the people who are on the front lines are usually the ones that pay the ultimate price. So the ones coming up behind them can win the fight. I'm willing to be on the front line. And I know there's a lot of people like me that are willing to be on the front line. So this younger generation behind us can finish the fight and win. Yeah. Sounds a little gloomy, but you know, I have to step back and look at my life in retrospect and see where I went wrong. And I think it's where most of us went wrong. We assumed that the government had our backs for the most part. We always knew there were corrupt people in politics. There's corrupt people everywhere. There's good and bad people everywhere. But we thought as a whole, the government was for the people, by the people. Now we know that's not true. There are so many entities that are driven with personal ambition and un-American social beliefs. And those people are true believers for the ones that the people at the top who are smart, who are making all these lower individuals drink the Kool-Aid and do their dirty work for them. And they sit back and laugh about it. You know they do. When they have their little dinner parties in DC, they're pretty much laughing at all of us. The shit that they get us to believe in. And knowing that there was another side of that that until recently most of us didn't see. But there's a new sheriff in town. Hey, Doris. Yeah, Doris. I have a thing about. I hate it when they call like Social Security and stuff entitlements. Entitlement to me is something that you get without ever having to give. And as far as I know, those of us who worked all of our lives paid into Social Security and all these things. And I do realize that uh, money is short-sighted compared to the length of what people live now. According to the numbers, the bean counters or whatever, that we basically will earn if we live long enough more than what we paid in total. But see, I kind of disagree with that because they had that money all these years that we give them, and they could have, how you get interest on, when you, it's like how 401k works. They take the lump sum of money and they have that money for the banks, then the banks give out loans, and then the interest comes back, and then that's a dividend that goes towards the people who are involved in the 401k. I felt like Social Security should have been ran that way, and I think it was in the beginning, so that they took our money and used it for programs to earn money, and then we would have had been able to live on those dividends later in life when it was time to actually collect on it. If y'all, I don't know the age of everybody. I'm sure everybody in here is my age or older. There was a surplus of Social Security benefits back in the early 90s. And then they started realizing, or they didn't realize it, they always knew it, but they come up with ways to use Social Security money for other programs. That's how the Social Security system started dwindling. Is now they never, when they took money out, they didn't use it like they borrowed money from Social Security. They just took it. If they use it as a loan to do this with another program to get some kind of return, then Social Security would have been never had be in the situation that it is now. But the problem is now that we're here, it's very hard to get it back. It's been stolen, basically. So those of us in the years like me, I have to worry about when it's going to end, and I'm I'm going to be alive when that happens, according to all the uh, smart economists in the government. So why, with all this money spent overseas that they've been finding, USAID could prop up so many programs in this country that would benefit us. This is why our programs are running dry, are going broke, because they care about everybody else before they care about us. What do you mean, Vern? Getting censored? Tell me what's going on, because I don't see nothing on my end. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as I know, I'm not saying anything too controversial. It's all facts. We all know it to be true. Yeah, Carl, that is true. But there's a new sheriff in town. And we got to do what it takes, whatever it takes, to keep him on task. And I don't know if it's even possible, but to keep him from being marred down in a bunch of judges filing injunctions on every little thing that he does. Uh, Even though the Democrats aren't in power, they're already hollering impeachment. For what? The stuff they're talking about, they want to impeach him on, they're lying about. Because they're saying it's a constitutional crisis, what he's doing. If y'all seen me earlier, we were talking about a little last night on Killer Carl's live stream. Doge is not a new program. It's not a new department. It's not something that President Trump just decided in his head that he was going to start. Because if y'all have been seeing this, it is President Obama who created Doge. There just wasn't anybody at the helm doing anything with it. It was like a campaign thing about creating Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. They didn't call it uh, fraud and abuse. All they called it back then was looking for waste. So, but nothing was ever done with it because, once again, promises made, no promises kept until now. That's one of my favorite slogans they use now: promises made, promises kept. Because there's a new sheriff in town. And I've been seeing the news. We all talked about, that the deal where they went around and tested all these chickens, and I forget how many millions they killed because they said the testing on these, it, they changed the threshold of what's a healthy chicken and what's not a healthy chicken. Anyways, I'll call this a conspiracy theory. I think because it happened at the end of their term in the administration, Biden's administration. There's so many things that they were doing to try to give Trump the worst situation to come in to start his administration out in, because now they said that they were lying about the inflation rate. It was a lot higher. Now it's high. Now they're showing true numbers. So now it looks like the inflation jumped. Inflation didn't jump. It's just the numbers are being used are true numbers to where they lied before, but they'll never be held accountable for it. Why? Because they're in government. I think so many things were done to try to handicap President Trump and coming in and doing and try to complete his promises to the American people that he campaigned on. Getting back to the chickens, because he campaigned that, when he gets in, one of the first things he's going to do is make a few executive orders, which he's already done, and help bring down prices of things like eggs and bread and all that. But then what they do, they went and killed millions of chickens, and now we have an egg shortage. They're literally blaming that on Trump. The prices of eggs went up since Trump's been in office. They even claimed it was because of the tariffs, which ain't even started really. All these things that are just getting started, when we all know that it takes things in the past to get set up to do. Nothing happens instantly, except for things like negotiations and stuff like that. But how you feel and what you physically can see and difference in the way you live and the cost of things is a lot slower process. But it's so funny how they did things to try to muck up the works for Donald Trump. From the Ukraine and Russia negotiations to the Israel and Hamas negotiations, the border, energy, all kinds of things that they did for the sole purpose of trying to make Donald Trump look like a liar, or like he promised things that he was not capable of completing or keeping his promise, basically. It ain't working. Most of us, and I say most of us, I mean a whole shit ton of us, see through the bullshit now. It's like what's that saying? Once you see something, it can't be unseen. So once you see what they're doing and how they're doing it, every time they say something now, that comes to mind. It's like when you watch a news outlet, you only need to watch one. Because let's be honest, if you watch, let's say CNN, almost word for word, when they're talking about something about President Trump or Elon Musk or whatever, damn near verbatim, all the other major outlets, whether it be on television or in print, it's almost word for word. And we all know now, because of the Twitter files, that people in government send out all these outlets, basically a memo of what's the topic of the day and the uh, buzzwords to use or phrases. Like right now, it's the phrase is it's the constitutional crisis or unelected. Elon Musk got hired to do a job for the Trump administration. He doesn't have to be elected. It's so funny, but we all see that. That's why they all look like idiots anymore, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see through the bullshit, every time they say something, you're automatically seeing the bullshit in the statement that they're talking about. And you don't take their word for it anymore. None of us do. Some of us never did. But some believe that a news outlet would be honest, because we always relied on the free press to hold those in power accountable. But now we know through backdoor ways of getting paid that these news outlets, some of them are, ideologically driven. They're activists in front of that mic. But the people who own the outlets was just interested in the money. If the Republicans was paying that kind of money to them, then all of a sudden you would see a lot of negative stories against the Democrats. But the Republicans didn't think about that. They are always behind the ball when it comes to dirty politics, which is kind of a good thing. But certain ones of them got let in on the game and become part of the group. And they didn't want that. They don't want that money to stop either. So now that we know that a lot of this stuff is going to dry up on them now, they know it. They're pissed off about it. Oh my God! I say they have fake rage. They have fake rage on, like, Elon Musk doing the job. They they could care less if Elon Musk is the one doing the job or not. They don't want nobody to do that job. I mean, nobody. And for them to make derogatory comments because the group that he has working for him are young. But I've said it before, they're young geniuses. They're all smarter than anybody else in Congress. Those 6 people and Elon Musk have more brain power than the entire Congress. Because let's be honest, just because you are a congressman or woman or a senator, don't make you the authority on what you're arguing on. Because you're just not. You're just somebody who got elected, who didn't know more about certain subjects than anybody else. But now you get fed the information because you've been elected to represent us. But that don't make you smarter than us. And it definitely don't make you smarter than Elon Musk or his group of young men and women looking for the fraud, waste, and abuse. And Lord, every day, every 4 hours, I don't know if you guys notice this, it's so hard to keep up with. Every 4 or so hours, they're listing stuff that they find. And the waste. And it's so funny because, once again, politicians can lie and never be held accountable. But when Elon Musk tell you that they're being as transparent as possible and they're listing everything that they find, and then the politicians are saying that they're not showing them anything. We can go on X and see the list. They're showing everybody exactly what they're finding. So a politician is lying. But and they're so dumb because they don't have a lot of brain power like Elon and them, that they think that you're not going to go look for yourself now, because we know now to not take their word for it. We go look for these things ourselves. We don't go by the headline. We don't go by the little clip of video that they show. We look for the long form of that video clip so you can see the actual context of what something's being said and go beyond the head. Because when they write a headline, it's written to be bombastic and negative most of the time, but they pretty much somewhere in the article, and it's usually at the end, they contradict what the headline's about, and they kind of tell you a little bit of the truth. But most people don't read the entire story; they just read the headline. Well, a lot of us is beyond that. We don't just read the headlines anymore, because once it's seen, it can't be unseen. Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you what, Carl, we're geniuses when compared to our politicians anymore, and they're all mostly lawyers. It's crazy how these lawyers. Uh, I mean, lawyers make decent money, but when you see what these people were worth when they started uh, working for the government in Congress, when they got elected, what they were worth and what they're worth now, they figured it out. Being a politician is far more financial rewarding than being just a lawyer. Jessica, you asking about the Haitians? Yes, the Haitians. Not no, no. I can't say they're all still here. Some of them self-deported, at least from this area. Here's the problem we have in Springfield, Ohio. I was going to get to this later, but since you asked, I'll talk about it now. So our local government, and I'm talking about Mayor Rue, Dr. David Eastrop, Crystal Brown. Now, Crystal Brown, in our last council meeting here, uh, basically called Springfield nothing but a bunch of racists, and she's probably not going to run for reelection because she can't represent a bunch of racists. And that the Haitians and basically she was saying black people, but she was meaning the Haitians because that's what the argument was about. Can't be racist because they're the minority. I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm tired of hearing that argument. Since when does the only version of being racist, the only way you can be racist is racist equals power. It's like if you have power over somebody and you have something derogatory to say about somebody, you're racist. But if you're just an individual that has no power, when they consider minorities, when, let's be honest, compared to the percentage of the minorities in the country, they are fairly, if not overly represented by percentages by population. So for that saying, race uh, equals power is bullshit. Anybody can be racist. Like it's Bridget Houston. I don't know. She hasn't really said too much, and so, but Tracy Tackett, I don't like her. Uh, but let me tell you what these people are doing. They are working with the local NGOs to help. The only way I can say it is to help evade ICE agents. Um, they have a newsletter they sent out about how to avoid certain like get-togethers and places, and like a lot of them are probably will no longer start going to work because of this, because and these people ain't even on the radar yet. They're doing this already for no reason. Uh, Only Haitians that have committed crimes. But here's the problem with this town: if they committed a crime, they literally their offense is being wiped from the record. And a friend of mine helped prove that in a previous one of my videos about our town, showing an individual going to court 3 times, and all 3 times it says previous convictions 0, when he was found guilty all 3 times. So ICE will never know to come after these people because they're not there's nothing on the book showing them to be the more of a criminal element than just, and because a lot of these people are here, they're here under that temporary protective status. So it's not like some of them come from the southern border, which in the end, Biden allowed those to apply for that, and they gave it to them. Even though they come up through the southern border, they were all still under that blanket. Exactly, there are 12% of the population represent 50. There you go. Let's see here. Tammy, see, it's not much. They're eating the cats, which they do. Yes, they do. The eating of the cats is a real deal, people. I've done enough investigating on this, and I've said it before. When they say 70% of Haitians practice this religion that has a cat ritual in it, you can't tell me that these people that have been brought over here from that country all of a sudden uh, killing a cat for a ritual and eating it or whatever they do stopped. That'd be like, okay, so you're a Christian and you move to a Muslim country, uh, so you're no longer going to practice your Christian belief because you're in a Muslim country. So the odds are most definitely cats are being removed from this earth. Yeah, Carl, I'm like you. I'm not worried about you. They talk about separation of children, all that. Well, Tom Holman had a good answer to that. They can go with them. There was nothing that says that they're bound to keep their children here. They can go with them if they don't want to be separated from them. If the child is born here, and right now the law says that that child is a U.S. citizen, they can go with them and let them deal with trying to get back in the country later as a U.S. citizen when they get older. But right now, I have no sympathy for none of them, because a lot of them are actually, there was a time here in this town we had more pregnant Haitians than anybody else in our population, because they were all looking for the anchor baby scenario, because they knew that temporary protective status was going to end. And anybody who knows, okay, so they were brought over here for the temporary protective status, knowing that they're going to continue living their lives while they're here. They're going to have partners and have sex and have a baby, because they don't do abortions. When they get pregnant, they have their children. So they all knew that they had opportunities, especially like if the woman marries a guy and the guy wants to stay in the country, so he marries the woman. They may not even be in love, and then they have a child. So now according to our U.S. citizens law, they get to stay. And then they do that. What is it? Migration chain, where they can bring certain family members over with them. It's all a bunch of bullshit. You know, Carl, I don't know if cat tastes like chicken. Uh, I mean, I could ask. I mean, I don't mind asking one of them if it does. I don't know if it'll offend them or not. And that's so funny because speaking of that, like their community leaders get offended when they get asked that question about the cat thing when they know they're lying through their teeth. I mean, look, the average IQ of a Haitian, and this is not being derogatory, this is fact, is 67. That's their average IQ. And they are prone to lying. I mean, their whole country is just a cesspool of bullshit and lies. That's why it has become a huge dumping ground for money laundering and child trafficking. Because that whole population, not all, I know not all, when I say whole, they ain't living right. We'll just say that. What we're saying, I'm sorry, guys, I'm reading the chat as we go here. Asian buffet. Cats, dogs, stray cats. You know, I've mentioned this before, and so this anecdotal, I think I said that right. I have a problem with that word. Always have. Things that are, unprovable facts. So I've lived here all my life. We've always had stray cat problems because, cats, they multiply crazy. Not everybody wants to keep, if a cat has a dozen kittens, they're pretty much, when they get old enough, are going to be let out into the world. Honestly, we do not have a stray cat problem in this town. When in my neighborhood that I live in, I used to see cats everywhere, and that's not an exaggeration. You literally can walk out your front door and see 4+ cats roaming around the neighborhood within eyesight. And, you got the cat paws on your car because your car's parked out on the street, which used to drive me crazy. We don't have that problem no more. So whether it's because of that situation, can't say. I can only tell you what we do or do not have a problem with. And like I said, 70% of that country practice this religion that has the cats in their rituals. And nothing stopped them from practicing their religion just because they moved to a different country. Just like I said, if you're a Christian, you move to a Muslim country, you don't stop being a Christian. Unless you convert to being a Muslim by choice. But if you're going to be a Christian, you're going to be a Christian. So, or if you come here in a Christian society and you're Muslim, you stay a Muslim. And you tried, and like, let's be honest, a lot of Muslims try to get laws changed in their local community to allow certain things that they allow in their religion that's not legal over here. They try their best. In a few scenarios that happen out even in the Midwest, that Sharia law, they try to, and seeing them, they're smarter than most. They start infiltrating politics. And what happens when you infiltrate politics is now you have people in power that can vote on these things, bring these things to the floor for a vote to change laws and to allow things that may not be allowed in the past. So they're slowly infiltrating our government doing that. It may sound derogatory, but we all know it's true. And case in point, Ilhan Omar. She's Somalian to the core, hates America. hates us, but she's in Congress. So when she votes with a particular bias that benefits her home country and her uh, values, not ours. Hopefully, that woman will be seeing some jail time, and she may be the first. I don't. She can't be deported. She's a U.S. citizen, so people say, "Well, deport her." You can't do it. She's a U.S. citizen now, but she can go to jail for some of the things that she's done and is doing right now. So, and that she may never see a day in jail, but she may lose the ability to uh, be part of our government, which I'm fine with that. Fine with it. Not everybody needs to go to jail to prove a point, but they do need to be removed from the positions that they're in. Hey, Stephanie. Let's see. In South Korea in the 90s, and I was there, only seen one cat, and she ran through the no tomorrow. Yeah, people gasp at this because it sounded so over the top. They're eating the cats and the dogs. When there's so many other parts of the the world, so many parts of the world where they don't see these animals as pets. They do see them as food. Just like we eat cows. Then over in India, a cow's part of their religion. So depends on what part of the world you're from. You know, do we judge them? Do they judge us? I mean, I'm sure we get judged by eating cows. Do we judge them for eating cats and dogs? It's what you grow up doing. It's your culture. It's a cultural thing. But they need to, if they're going to be here, they need to assimilate to American culture. And right now, that's not happening. None of the people coming into this country are people who they want to be here to extract our our resources. They're not here to be American. They're here to take American resources and give back to their home countries. They do not care for our way of life. They do not care for our government. All they do care about is, I've said this before, knocking America off its high horse. So many people despise us, and I hate to say it, it's due to envy. Because I mean, we're not perfect. We have a bunch of people who just, I mean, you know, barely got through high school, trying to make a living, raising a family. We have a huge part of the population that is just that. So we're not like up here as far as of having a society that is just such an intellectual, over the top thing. But what we do have in this country is a lot of patriotic hard workers. That's what this country is. And if you're not part of that, you're part of the problem. So all these new people coming into our country, they're hard workers for their personal gain to help out, not to make this country better. They're not looking to make this country better. When they can protest and fly foreign flags, what other country allows that? You know what I mean? We have some countries that, that they call Western civilization that will allow that. But like if you was to protest in Mexico and fly a bunch of American flags around and just basically badmouth the Mexican government, how long do you think that would last? You know what I mean? Uh, Go over to Iran and protest against the Iranian government flying American flags. How long would that last? I know we allow it because we're good people, and certain things we feel like is not worth harming or taking the freedom of somebody because we have the First Amendment rights. So, but it's still so disrespectful. Can't be looked at any other way. It's just disrespectful. I mean, come on. It ain't right, but we allow it. Some things need to be tweaked a little bit. Like the burning, honestly, y'all can agree or disagree. I am a firm believer of my First Amendment rights and my Second Amendment rights. But the flag is the symbol of everything we hold dear. And I don't know, I was in Boy Scouts, and when we would go camping, and it had campgrounds for strictly for Boy Scouts and stuff. When we had to raise and lower the flag, you do not let that flag touch the ground. You have a certain way of folding it every night and a certain way of getting it up the flagpole every morning. And yet we allow them to burn the flag during protests. To me, that's something that I think needs to be amended because the flag, a lot of people died to give them the right to do that. So really, should it be a right to be allowed to do? I mean, I'm not. You can say what you want about the flag, say what you want about America. That's your First Amendment rights. But the flag is a symbol of everything we hold dear. So I may be, I don't know what you would call me, but I just don't want the flag burnt. I don't. Uh, Literally, if I was around someplace and I caught a group of people burning the flag in protest, I know I'm the one that'd be going to jail, but I'm going to be one of them that's going to try to stop it. Whether I'm in the right or if I'm in the wrong, it's my belief. Yeah, the Boy Scouts don't exist no more. True that. You know what was wrong with having the separation of the Scouts? Why does everybody insist on everybody have to be included in everything? It's Boy Scouts. It's a place where you learn how to be a man. And until 10 years ago, that wasn't a bad thing to try to learn how to be. You have Girl Scouts, they learn their things. And if there's something that they thought that Boy Scouts are doing that the Girl Scouts wanted to do, we'll do it within that group. But to try to mesh it all together, everybody inclusion, no, I no. There's certain things that it's like you can't you can't bring a girl into a Boy Scout situation and teach and train these young boys in the same manner that you would with a girl around. You just can't. So I see nothing wrong with keeping that separated. It kind of pissed me off when I seen where they were allowing, making it to where girls could be part of the Boy Scouts. I don't know. If that sounds misogynist, I apologize, but it's just something I believe in. This bill, see. All rights. Even though certain people in our government try to steal that away. Yeah, Bill, that's basically the whole premise of tonight's live stream. It's what our government is not doing for us and what they're doing against us. But there's a new sheriff in town. Yes, Stephanie. See, that's another thing. Uh, this having to be bilingual to get certain jobs in this country now. Bullshit. The only job you should have to be bilingual in is when you're trying to process people who want to become U.S. citizens. But as far as I remember back in the day, they had to take English classes. They had to learn a certain amount of English before that's why the process took some time. Uh, because they say it takes years to become a citizen the right way, because there's a whole bunch of things that you have to get to a certain level of education and ability to exist in this country by knowing a certain amount of English and reading English text and stuff like that. That's not required. Now it's required for us to bend our rules to fit their needs. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Well, Terry, you'd be surprised the parents that want their girls to be Boy Scouts, just for the simple fact that they're uh, left leaning. Uh, I don't know. I don't want to say something bad because I don't want to get my live stream removed from YouTube. So I'll just say left leaning, just for the simple fact that they want to prove that they can do it, I guess, uh, because they're all for inclusiveness. Nobody should be left out, no matter what your sex and gender is. Um, there's nothing wrong with having a group of educational things like the Boy Scouts for boys and the same thing for Girl Scouts for girls. Like I said, if there's things that the Boy Scouts are doing that some of the girls find to be fun and want to learn and do, add it to the curriculum in the Girl Scouts. You don't have to join the other group. Let's see. Yeah, Terry, they are pushing the envelope. Ain't no doubt about that. But we let them. We're letting them. And I hate when politicians, when we stand up for our rights and we want something to be a certain way, and then they act like we're bad for that, and it's it's not on par with American values. I hate when somebody on the left says that. Like, what the fuck do they know about American values? Nothing. They don't know a damn thing about American values. The only thing they know about American values is what we're valued at financially, and they wanted to extract that from us. That's their American value, is the extraction of our resources for personal gain. But there's a new sheriff in town. It's time to start pushing back. We got to get, we have to assume that the Republicans are not going to retain both the House and the Senate after midterms, because that's just historically that's just what happens. Now, hopefully, Trump stays in a favorable, positive approval rating, and everybody in the party, that possibly may not happen during midterms, but you have to assume that it is. So there's so many things that needs to get done, that needs to go beyond the executive order, that needs to be taken from the executive order, ran through Congress, and made into law, so that it can't just be signed away when the next president shows up. Because anybody who thinks that the Democrats will never be back in power again is very naive. But we have to make them, we have to basically bring them to their damn knees to let them know that this shit they've been doing for the last decade or two stops. They will be held accountable. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to read your chats. CWC. Yeah, Deborah. Well, our definition of poor in this country is completely different than the definition of poor everywhere else in the world. I mean, because poor, what does it mean to be poor? Obviously, you're broke, so you're poor, but do you have a place to live? You have a TV to watch? You have a cell phone? You have a computer? You have a washer and dryer? You have a car to drive? You may not have all these things, but I guarantee some of the poorest people in this country, I'm not talking about the homeless, I'm talking about people who consider themselves, because homeless, a lot of times, you know, there's a mental aspect to being homeless, that could be drug addiction, could be mental illness, and there is some situations where somebody has lost their job and it just kind of everything went to hell in a handbasket. But there is a way to get back to being, just American version of poor. Yeah, I hope Trump weeds out the rhinos too. I think we help with that. Trump needs to shame them basically socially, and then give us the ability to vote them out. So that requires our help. He can help us recognize who they are, and a lot of us already know who they are. But then, put together a campaign against them to primary their damn asses out of there. Let's see, Trump, weed out there. Yep, that's what I was just saying there, Carl. Doris, I would let my daughter go into a Boy Scouts. For one thing, I was a Boy Scout, so I wouldn't want them getting hurt accidentally by the physical requirements of the stuff that they run the Boy Scouts through, because we had obstacle courses, we had super long hikes. I remember one time we were being rowdy, and all of us kept talking back and forth, and our den leader got up, told every one of us to pack our backpacks. This was like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. We went on a hike, and we hiked till 9 o'clock that morning. And when we got back, we was not allowed to go to sleep. We had to stay up because we were doing a whole bunch of stuff with a whole bunch of other Boy Scout troops. So we had activities we had to do that day. So we learned our lesson. But I wouldn't want to put my daughter through that. And I wouldn't want my daughter. We slept in the cabins were one big, huge room, and everybody slept on sleeping bags on the floor and that lined the outside of the wall of this room. And we kept the place heated with a pot-bellied stove, and that's what we cooked on too. And we had a little gas Coleman, and then we had that, and then we all had to take turns. Well, I mean, it was a learning experience that was awesome as a young man. But I wouldn't want my daughter to be involved in all that. It's not the same, you know what I mean? So they were teaching us how to be young men. That, and I'm sure they do the same thing. The Girl Scouts teaching them how to be young ladies, how to earn everything that you get, not just expect it. What I miss? What Francis do? Sorry, guys. The chat room's moving a little faster than I. Am I missing part of the? Oh, before I retired, okay, as a nurse, I worked at a free medical clinic, totally unpaid. Was encouraged to learn Spanish. I wasn't interested because I'm American. There you go. Yeah, you volunteered, so thank you for your service. Um, I think more people need to volunteer for things. And let's be honest, when I was raising kids, I felt like I say I didn't have time, but I had time for my hobbies. So I could have traded off some of my hobbies because I'm into cars. In case anybody don't know, that's why I have the Empty Pockets garage. But I used to drag race. I round track raced a little bit back in the '90s. And I built hot rods. So I could have volunteered for more things, but I didn't think about that at the time because I felt like I was doing enough raising my kids. You know what I mean? Trying to teach them that they had to get out and earn everything that they get. Um, but saying that, I'm going to be a pollster this year. I got to go through the class in March, I think it is. I'm trying to volunteer. I have volunteered at our local GOP office twice, and they blew me off both times. So, once again, it's long-term politics. These people are like I don't want to say the good old boys class because there's women in there too, but when somebody like me walks in and offers my help, they just judge me by my looks and then dismiss my genuine need to want to help. So shame on them. I don't need them. I do enough on my own to stir up shit in this town. It's going to get worse. My local politicians are going to. I mean, I know I'm already been discussed amongst local politicians recently, uh, but that's just too damn bad. Uh, I'm going to try my best to be a better person, to volunteer, to help my neighborhood, to help my town, uh, to make sure that people who need help get help, and the people who are part of the problem get removed. But that's a long process. I just got started doing this, so a lot of y'all never met me until a few months ago because of all this Haitian deal. You know, I got some variety or notoriety. Sorry, uh, for my comments and my uh, point of view on the Haitian situation here in town and the things that I've come across and uncovered. And it's not. I get more positive feedback from people who live outside of Springfield compared to the hate that I get from the people within Springfield. Because the hate that I receive within Springfield are the people that are part of the problem. You're people who their paychecks are attached to the Haitians being here. So I'm not well liked, uh, but that's okay. I wouldn't invite them over for a barbecue or a beer to drink at my house either, so I don't really care. But that's a local Springfield James problem. But now we're talking about other things. How I got now that I'm doing this, I like being able to express my opinion. Uh, I like to talk about solutions. I don't just like to bitch. I think, my opinion, if all they can do is, this is how when I was a boss, and I had an employee that all they want to do is come to me and complain about stuff every week. It's individual have a complaint or whatever, and then I'd say, well, okay, well, what's your solution? And a lot of times, the individual would be complaining would be dumbfounded. They look at me, well, what do you mean? Well, you thought about it enough to bitch about it, but you haven't thought about it enough to give me a solution that may help the problem that you're upset about. So don't come bitching unless you have, and you may not have the solution, but at least give me some kind of clue that you've even thought about trying to find a solution, not just bitch. And I hope I'm not just one of those people that just bitch. I want to be part of the solution. I may not be, but I hope that I am. So let's get back to what. See, I get it. I get on these little rants. I ramble. This is what a lot of people say they like about me because I just ramble on like anybody else would. I'm not a polished analyst. I don't have a formatted agenda that I keep on task with. You see these even on YouTube now. They do their little podcast and they have a little segments. Okay, and they devote 10 minutes to this subject. Well, once that's over with, then boom. No matter whether they're complete having the conversation about that subject, they move on. That's one thing I like about live streaming. We move on when we want to move on. We can make this conversation as short as long as we want. As long as you want to sit here and listen to me and hopefully engage, well, we're going to do it. It's good. I like it. It's become one of my favorite things to do. One of my most favorite things to do, and I hope he's still in the chat, is Saturday nights, Saturday Night Free for All with Killer Carl. I'm not on there every Saturday because sometimes life gets in the way, but it's become one of my most favorite things to do is get on there with Carl and sometimes Tyler and whoever else may want to pop in and opine. But it's been what, Carl, if you're in there, what was the last night? We live streamed for over 3 hours last night. And I tell you, it's become one of my most favorite things to do. And I like having multiple people verbally engaging. I like to chat. The chat room's fun, but I offer this every week. You can send me an email. I can send you a link. It's if you watch Carl's podcast, live stream, whatever you want to call it, you can see on there that the people that come on don't turn their cameras on, or they put something in front of it and they just have the mics turned on so they can have a conversation without being seen. Because a lot of people have, I'm uncomfortable being seen. I'm just an old fat guy. And I get a lot of comments about my appearance. And most of it I find funny because I don't care. But a lot of people find that uncomfortable. And come on, leave your camera turned off. Let's have a conversation. I enjoy it. That's one of the most favorite things I do. Saturday nights, we get on there and we'll be talking about serious stuff. And then we're basically grown men who are juveniles on Saturday nights. Our immaturity shows up real quick. I gotta say, and I find it to be fun because a lot of times it's fun to be immature every now and then. I'm so ignorant that kind of. Stephanie, and that's part of that. That is the problem. Is most of the people who buck against what people like me are saying about the situation or them is the fact that they are scared of losing the money that comes with being associated with this, the NGOs, the temporary employment service, the real estate deals. These people are afraid of losing out on that income. Uh, so they try to put together some coherent argument of why these people are a good thing for our town. And honestly, it's not. A lot of the Haitians are being treated like, I mean, they basically are being, their labor's being extorted badly. I mean, they're having to live in these bunkhouses because, and it's not their fault the rent is so high for everybody who's trying to rent a single home. It's the fact that these people who own these homes says, okay, I can put 12 Haitians in a house that don't mind living together because they're used to living in such worse conditions in their home country. And I can collect a certain amount of money for each bed that I rent out instead of the actual house. So they make a house so expensive for a single family to rent that it keeps them from renting it, which opens it up for the Haitians to get. Now, is that the Haitians' fault? Not really. It's our government's fault they're even here. So it's the people who own these homes that try to extract what money that the Haitians are making for those who are working, and also for all the money that they're extracting from these government. And there's so many ways these Haitians are getting paid, guys. It's so funny. They try to act like it. Well, they're not a burden on our social services because they're getting like 3 months of help and that's it. No, that's not it. That is not it. Uh, and I'm sure what I'm saying is going to be a lot of it's going to be through that USAID and FEMA of how these people get this extra money. Because through FEMA alone, a single individual, a male, can get $600 a month for a year and never have to look for a job. That's not the requirement to get that money. But that's not the only thing they get. They can get food assistance. They can get a voucher, $3,000 to purchase a vehicle. A family can get a voucher for $6,000 to be able to get into a house. Now think about that. Let's just say on the $3,000 per person, and you have a dozen people living in one house, and the people with the temp services, these NGOs, all know about that money going to them, so they take a portion of that money from each individual. So to where most of us would pay a security deposit and first month's rent. Now imagine that times 12. They're extracting U.S. taxpayer money. They're stealing from us. Now, our government's giving it to the Haitians, and then these people are extorting it from the Haitians. It's a scam. It's got to stop. All these people, there should be if they don't go to jail, there should be a place in hell for every one of them. Yeah, Doris, you know, what can I say? I don't have the face or the body for TV, but apparently I have it for YouTube. Yeah, Terry, honestly, I don't know how that's going to work out because the money, has not stopped all the way because of how many ways, all the fingers of government that has found ways of getting money to these people. Because it's not all through that USAID. I say USAID, USA, you might as well call it. Uh, but it's a start. And I've said this before. Some people talk about, well, they, in the larger scheme of things, it's not a large portion. It's hardly, it's not even 1% of our national budget. But how many lives would that money affect if it went to regular U.S. citizens? So what? It's less than 1% of the national budget. It's our money. It's not being spent on our citizens. So if it's not being spent on our citizens, it should not be spent at all. This is why we have $36 trillion in debt. Think about how much that's ballooned. Now, don't get me wrong. It ballooned a little bit. I say a little bit because everybody talks about how much Trump spent when he was in office. Anybody talk about how much it's ballooned in just 4 years? It's ridiculous. And why is it? It's because they find more ways to spend money and no way of getting money brought back. Because Trump has it right. I don't want to. I don't want to ramble on too much about, but this is still on topic. People talk about, well, he's giving tax breaks to his rich buddies. As far as I know, a poor person never gave me a job ever. All my income, I've gotten my jobs from people who had money, and if I'm providing a service to them to earn my money, and if I'm not of value to the company, then they get rid of me. So if the government makes it so hard for a person or a company to do business in this country, then I lose my job, which is what's been happening over the last few decades. Is I've said this forever. I've been saying we need a businessman since the early 90s in office because this country needs to be ran like a business. You do not spend more than you bring in. Otherwise, you go bankrupt, and that's where we're headed, bankruptcy. You figure out a way to make new revenue. And what's the best way to make new revenue? Create new taxpayers. How do you create new taxpayers or a higher taxpayer base? You make it to where these companies want to do business in America so that they can employ us and employ us at a decent wage that brings in more revenue for the government. And if we cut stupid spending out, the government becomes stronger. But it makes, and when I say the government, I mean like the buying power of the government, which makes the dollar worth more. And unfortunately, to right this ship, to get it back on course, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. It's kind of like when you're sick and in the hospital. Usually, the cure is just as painful as the sickness, but you got to go through that to get to the other side to start feeling good again. So our country is sick. We gotta heal it. Unfortunately, the cure is painful, but we have to accept that. This is real talk. You can't, anybody who thinks that they can fix such a screwed up system that our country's been doing for the last few decades without it hurting a little bit is naive. Very naive. So I voted for Ross. I like Ross Perot. I tell you, I've been rambling on a little bit too much tonight, I guess. I just wanted, let me jump through a few things that I actually wanted to talk about real quick, and then I'll jump off here. Um, a lot of people are making remarks about, Trump threatened that if all the hostages wasn't released by Saturday noon, that all hell was going to break loose but he cleaned that up a little bit later by saying he's leaving that up to Israel, but he would back Israel if they decided to not honor the ceasefire after. But Hamas released some more hostages, not all of them, but some more. And they also, with all their tough talk, agreed to continue with the ceasefire and wanted to get into phase 2 of these negotiations to make this a permanent ceasefire. And the end result is, Trump's end result is, none of this is going to work unless the end result is Hamas can no longer govern Gaza. That's one of his no negotiation. They will not be in charge at the end of this in Gaza anymore. Well, and they people go, well, he said he wanted the United States to own Gaza. No, what he said was, we would own it, which means that we'd be responsible for helping them get back on their feet and finding places for these people to live. My thumbnail in tonight's live stream is a picture of Gaza. Just mountains of crumbled concrete. I mean, Gaza is destroyed. He's trying to be the humanitarian, saying that he's trying to force these other countries to take these people in under refugee status, and then help them rebuild and protect that region. So we would own it. It'd be our fault if it doesn't succeed. Not that it would be part of the United States. Some people, they're crazy. That's all I gotta say. And then now we got Steve Witkoff, which is Trump's head of the negotiating team for. He's going to be in Saudi Arabia this week, starting the end of the Ukraine-Russia war. Apparently, Zelensky's not going to be there, but nobody said he had to be there because he's already had discussions with President Trump. So, but he is sending a delegation of people, just like Putin sending a delegation of people to Saudi Arabia, and they're going to work towards ending that war. Now, he didn't end it on day one. So if you listen to CNN, it's a promise he broke. I'm willing to give him a little slack because he's done more already in 4 weeks trying to end that war. Biden never did anything. All he did was want to escalate the war. And he tried to escalate it even worse before Trump got in office. Do y'all remember that? When he authorized the use of ballistic missiles being fired into Russia that requires a U.S. operator to operate because it's technology that we would not give the Ukraine. So he tried to make it to where he thought Putin would bite and make it to where it's full-on war, period, between them and us. But it didn't work. I mean, Putin talked his tough talk, but he also knew that it was just a matter of time. President Trump would be there and the adults would be back in charge. So that's something good to happen this week. And then now the Pete Hegseth and them are working on the deal where they finally are upgrading military technology with AI And they're starting with the process at the border because, the cartels are using drones and now they're arming those drones. And like our military is not allowed to shoot them out of the sky uh, for whatever reason. Once it crosses into airspace in the United States or something about U.S. military not allowed to engage in anything on U.S. soil. Hopefully that'll change. That's going to require a little bit, but hopefully they can get that changed. That needs to be removed because Biden signed that thing saying that he gave military authority to engage against U.S. citizens for detainment and arrest for any uprisings against the government that they deemed fit or was an uprising against the government. Hey, JD. Yeah, Papa. Yeah, it's true. They've been. Yes, Ukraine's always been corrupt. Ukraine was the original source of the Russian dossier. I don't know if y'all knew that or not. I'm sure a lot of y'all did. But so Ukraine, I don't know why we give a shit about Ukraine, but one of the sticking points with Zelensky is, as Trump says, if you want our help, you got to give us something in return. You don't just get something from us for nothing anymore. And he wanted the mineral rights signed over to the United States. Zelensky says no. Well, now Trump, being Trump, says, okay, you're on your own. Let Europe help you out. Guarantee they won't. They're not going to spend the money we've been spending to help your ass out. So if we don't get what we want, you get nothing from us. See how you survive then. But he's wanting the war to stop. So, yeah, Fish, Ukraine has always been known as being one of the most corrupt countries in the world. I mean, look, that's Hunter Biden worked for that energy company out of Ukraine. When they tried to impeach Trump for quid pro quo, asking for that to be looked into as far as Biden's being part of that, they tried to say it was quid pro quo and they wanted to impeach him on it. But then you got Biden on the record, on camera, saying that he threatened them with withholding $1 billion in aid if they didn't fire the prosecutor that was going after that energy company. Nobody ever talked about that. It's crazy. And we allow it. We allow them to get by with it. But there's a new sheriff in town. I don't think Biden pardoned enough people, to be honest with you. I think he pardoned his essentials, his family, the people who are part of the J6 committee, the witnesses. Why would you pardon witnesses? Does that make sense to you? Why would you pardon witnesses from the J6 committee trials? That's what you want to call it. Which this is something that the FBI should have been doing the investigation on, not some damn politician having these hearings and then making U.S. citizens who got out of hand. Let's be honest, they did. Went from a protest to a riot. But it wasn't as bad as they made it out to be, especially since the numbers of people that were there. Far more damage could have been done. It was a few people in a group of a massive amount of people. But why pardon the witnesses? Unless you know that the witnesses were lying. They've already got 2 of those Capitol policemen. It's already been proven to be liars. Did they get held accountable for perjury? No. They're pardoned now. They don't have to worry about it. But I don't think he pardoned enough people. I think we're going to find that there's a lot of people, and like Adam Schiff tried to, I don't need to be pardoned. I ain't done nothing wrong. Then he accepted the pardon. Adam Kinsinger said the same thing. I ain't done nothing wrong. I just did my duty. I don't need to be pardoned. But he accepted the pardon. Same with Liz Cheney. It's crazy. And then why would they be pardoned? Most of them. I think, Fauci even, all the way back to 2014. Why take that pardon all the way back to 2014? It's funny how AOC and them want to talk about how horrible Trump is for pardoning these people who attacked police. He's supposed to be a supporter of the police and the military and the first responders and all this, and then he pardoned all these policemen or people who attacked the Capitol Police and tried to kill them and all this other stuff. Did you see some of the people that Biden pardoned? Cop killers. Not people who've gotten in the altercation during a riot. And let's think about how many policemen across this country, with all the BLM riots and the Antifa riots, all these policemen that got injured in those riots. Do you hear them pleading for justice for them? Anywhere? Do you hear them pleading for justice? And do you hear them saying anything to Biden about pardoning that he killed 2 cops? And then they try to say the individual that he pardoned had created that website. It was in the dark web, and people used it for nefarious things. But he created the website. He did not create the actions of the people of what they did on the website. And did he get over his head? Did he not police his website better? Probably not. But should he be in jail for 2 life terms plus 40 years or something for child pornography, child trafficking, or whatever? You could buy drugs on that website. It was all in the dark web. Now, saying that, not saying he's a good dude, because he created the website to get out of the eyes of the government. I don't think his intentions was those kind of things happening, but he didn't police it good enough. And let's be honest, did he really deserve 2 life terms and 40 years? I mean, even I don't think so. I think he served a lot of time, and I think time served. To be honest with you, he spent a lot of time in prison. But nobody talks about these other people that Biden has pardoned. Biden has pardoned some very bad people. Domestic terrorism, cop killers, financial extortioners, all these people in his family that basically through him, sold out America to foreign countries, all pardoned. And all the politicians can talk about is how Trump's a bad dude for pardoning J6ers. And not all of them got pardoned. 100% of them did not get pardoned. Some of their sentences are being looked at to be commuted as time served. Because let's be honest, it's like when he let Ricky Vittorio out, I think, is the Proud Boy leader. 15 years for, and did y'all read the text messages he wrote? 15 years for that? My God, people. If that wasn't politically motivated, then obviously you don't know what political prosecution is. So we're righting the ship, though. Ship's been leaning on its side, taking on water for a while now. It's going to be painful to start sealing up the leak and getting that water pumped out, getting the swamp drained, and getting that ship afloat, heading in the right direction. You know, the world is a wonderful place and a bad place at the same time. So hopefully we've been ran by some very bad people, and our country has been pretty much going down the toilets for a while now. And that's changing. That is changing. I got one more note. I talked about this on Carl's live stream last night. The Democrats. We all know they're evil people. They have all this fake anger and rage against the machine that's in charge now. When they're the machine in charge, anything goes. But when you put somebody in charge that we want, all of a sudden everything's wrong. But anyways, our I say local, a state of Ohio, I live in Ohio, tried to pass through, and I know they did it as a publicity stunt. I mean, what I'm about to tell you, if you haven't heard about it, you're going to think I'm bullshitting you. You're going to think I'm telling you a story. But this literally happened this past week. They try to put a bill in front of the state Congress, I guess is what you call it, to go through committee to be looked at, to see if it's something they want to debate on, to vote on, whatever. And the bill says that if you get caught if you get caught ejaculating without purpose of procreation, you can be fined $10,000. So it's hilarious. But I mean, when I first, I had to look it up. I actually watched them do the vote on it. So yeah. So if you get caught for recreational ejaculation with the purpose of procreating for a child, $10,000 fine. I got to thinking about this. It would have been funny if it had actually went to a serious look at, because what you're saying then is Democrats have a problem with gay men when they're supposed to be supporters of the LGBTQ plus AA whatever community. So gay men don't ejaculate for procreation. It's an impossibility. It's impossible. So when they get together and they finish their business, each one of them can be fined $10,000 if that would have actually been a serious proposal. Yeah, Pop. We talked about that last night on the on Rumble on Carl's live stream about the Google searches for uh, criminal lawyers that spiked in the DC area. I wonder why. We all know. But anyways, back to the $10,000 fine deal. So the next time, especially if you live in Ohio and a Democrat wants to argue about uh, Trump hating gay people or whatever, you can throw it in their face about, well, you guys tried to fine gay men $10,000 every time they had sex together, each. Think about that. And how would they enforce that, for one thing? That's kind of the funny thing about it. Are they going around because, if you buy, that means if you buy rubbers, condoms, you're on their watch list. Because why would you buy a condom if not for recreational ejaculation? So, to buy, matter of fact, it would probably outlaw condoms in the state of Ohio eventually if that would have went through. You'd have had to think about that. You'd had to bootleg condoms from another state. You get caught with them in your car, you got contraband. This is your Democrat Party. I just wanted to leave this on a funny note. It's a fun time to be in America right now if you're us. Not so much for the left. And have you seen how small I was going to mention one more thing. You seen how small the protests are against Trump right now? Uh, if you look at it, because they don't span out anymore. They used to span out and shit, like if there was like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people, whatever, protesting Trump in the streets or whatever. I seen like news stories of, I think, 3 different protests across the country. Maybe 100 in the protest. It makes me go back to that. There was a conspiracy theory going around because somebody had, and Antifa had claimed when they got in trouble, they said, well, I'm not really with these guys. They were paying me $1,500 a month and get bused and hoteled to come and do these protests. So all these BLM and Antifa riots, the reason why some of them are protests were so large is because these people, because everybody's saying, well, how can this many people, why ain't any of these people got jobs? How can they have time to come out and do all these protests all the time? And the conspiracy theory was they was getting paid. Well, have you noticed since USAID's been audited and a lot of money's been frozen, stopped from going out, the protests shrank. The size and number have shrank. And you can see the ones that are actually protesting, those are your true believers that drink the Kool-Aid. Those are your pussy hat wearing, purple haired, shirt too small for them, claiming they're going to buck the system and not allow conservative men to have sex with them. Okay, so we win. That's a plus plus. Those are the only people you see at these, besides politicians. There were more politicians protesting this during their press conference than I've seen actual protests across the country. The only other big protest that I've seen even was that was large was in L.A., where the Latinos were protesting against ICE, supporting their flags of their country, Mexico, Venezuela, I seen a Brazil flag. So you have a problem with our country, but yet you don't want to leave. Okay. The only thing I can say about when they protest like that, it makes it easy for Tom Homan and them to find them because they can just surround those protests and start processing them, checking their IDs, letting those who are U.S. citizens go, giving them the finger, and throwing the rest of them on the bus. I mean, right now we have Gitmo. Now we're going to be using Rikers. And then we were just talking about the country that offered to use our prison system. And we can't send U.S. citizens there, but we can. We definitely can send the people that we are deporting there until we get them processed. So we've got places for all these people to go while they're getting processed to be completely deported out of our system, which is pissing a lot of the left off. Oh, they're so mad about that. But what are they going to do? There's a new sheriff in town. Let me tell you something, Terry. When people were getting paid, they did not give a shit about the temperatures for the most part. They were getting paid to be there. That's like where you see in parking lots. I've seen the videos time and time again, so it's not like something that's just a rumor. To where there would be skids of bricks set up in a parking lot somewhere where there's no repairs being made, no repairs, but there'd be a skid of bricks there, stayed, and then there'd be like U-Haul box trucks there that they would all these protesters would go up to, and they would come out with all these protesting signs and sticks and things that look like small bats. You know, all this stuff was paid for. But now that it's not being paid for right now, they don't have the loyalty. It was all loyal to the money, not loyal to the cause. Just just one more thing to think about, guys. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'll say it again. Anybody wants to come on and hang out, we have a verbal conversation. You don't got to be on camera. Shoot me an email. I'll send you a link. So far, the only people I've ever had on my show is Carl, Killer Carl from Rumble. I like to get some of you guys on here. Don't be bashful. You don't have to be on camera. Get on here and let's have a conversation. I even invited people who disagree with me to have a debate. And I'm not a great debater, guys. I'm nobody. I'm not like quick with the tongue to be able to fire back at stuff. So if somebody really wanted to debate me, they have a real opportunity of getting the better of me. Saying that, I've debated a lot of people on the left over the years, and I've never lost a debate. And the only reason I can say that is the reason for is because my point of view for the debates come from common sense and proof, factual stuff, not just some headline they seen somewhere or heard. Uh, so you know what? I had a video I was going to play. If y'all don't mind, I'll play it real quick because it's my thing about AOC. I'm really this is one of the things I think she should go to jail for. So let me throw that on there real quick before we get out of here, guys. It won't take long.
If ICE comes to your door, you do not have to open the door. You can stay silent. If they have detained you, you can say, I would like to remain silent. You invoke your right.
AOC, sorry, sis. You're doing a good job for your people, but you're blinded by your empathy, and it could potentially land you in jail. It could potentially land you in jail.
That was her, the beginnings of her little webinar that she had not too long ago. And it gets much worse than that. And like I said, it wasn't going to be a long video, but I wanted to show you why I think she should go to jail. Uh, this is a U.S. Congresswoman telling an illegal how to circumvent the law, how to not get caught. So she's telling an illegal how to keep breaking the law. In return, that means she is now officially breaking the law. Now, Jack, what you're saying, she may not see any jail time, but I think she should be removed from office, because when you are telling somebody to defy federal law, now if you don't like the law, y'all had the power to change the law. You didn't do it. So whether you like the law or not, we don't always get the choice of enforcing the laws we like or dislike. The law is the law. That's why if you don't like the law, if it's an outdated law, this one isn't, but if it was, you have the ability to send it up through Congress, vote on it, and either remove it or make something added to. But you can't not follow federal law when you're part of the federal government. Don't know if that stupid woman don't understand that. She's part of the government that creates these laws, and she's telling them to break the law, which means that she is now breaking the law. I don't know why she held it in English. Probably because she doesn't speak Spanish very well. I mean, she's a lady. I don't know if I've ever heard her say too much. She does say some things in Spanish, but a whole lot. It's probably stuff that she's been coached to say. Because let's be honest, she's a New Yorker. She may be of Spanish heritage, but she's a New Yorker. She speaks English. I don't know of her speaking Spanish too much. At least I haven't seen it. So yeah, Jack. The thing is, she may be representing her area that she got voted in for, because it is New York. They are some strangely liberal people. And, used to liberal was a good word, but you meant live. That's not what liberal means anymore. Liberal means that you live the way I want you to live, and if you have a different opinion than mine, well, then you're the bad person. That's their version of liberal. Yeah, Jack says the legal obligation as a sitting congresswoman of these United States to follow the federal laws and not tell somebody how to get around the law. Yeah, street Spanish. That's what I'm saying. She has some phrases she says, and if you can, she don't even have a Spanish accent. People, she's American. She only throws up that Spanish accent when she's in the crowd that she thinks requires her to have that accent. She is a grifter. Uh, she was she auditioned for that job that she has, uh, and it has paid her well. I said at the beginning of this live stream, people. I'll end it with what I said. This is a complete circle here. She was a bartender struggling to pay her college tuition. and now is worth, depending on who you talk to, 29 million, 10 million, anywhere, somewhere between 10 and 29 million for being in Congress for less than 8 years. And she's not a genius. She's not even close to being a genius. How? I just want to know how. Could be legit, and it's fine if it is. But there's too many people like her in Congress that have the same story. When they got elected, some were millionaires already. But even those who were like worth like 1.4 million or whatever, and then, you know, 20 years later, they're worth $80 million. How? I think we're going to find out how. So I'm going to end this. Like I said, there's a new sheriff in town, and he's deputized all of us to help right this ship. I hope we're up for the task. Like I said, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt for a little bit. But the big picture, when we come out on the other end of this, we will be far stronger than we have been since the 80s. And you know, it took, when they talk about the only budget in our lifetime it's been uh, balanced was in '92 with Clinton. People, those of y'all don't remember Jimmy Carter, which I'm sure he's happy in his grave now, knowing that he's not going to go down as the worst president in U.S. history. That's going to be Joe Biden. But through the 70s, into the 70s, into the 80s, Jimmy Carter is a nice man. He was. But he wasn't a good president. And he had too many of those left-leaning social agenda things that he thought was more important than it was keeping America strong. And it took 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Bush Sr. to make sure that everything was put in place. Because, you know, Reagan started shrinking the government and started bringing manufacturing back, and which brings a larger tax base. And then, unfortunately, this is how Bush Sr. lost, because he had to raise taxes, which was an unpopular thing to do. But what did that create? A balanced budget in 1992. There's no way that a president comes in and within 18 months of their presidency, uh, all of a sudden can balance the budget if he didn't have the help of the previous administrations. It's going to take more than 4 years of Trump to right this ship. This is where we got to make sure we're very diligent about getting the right politicians in place to further this along. The next generation of politicians after Trump's 4 years. It's going to take time. And hopefully we can keep it on the right course and get it handled. Get us back to being a strong country again. So, anyways, guys, I rambled on way too long tonight. I apologize. I run off the mouth too much sometimes. Um, Give me a holler. Let me think. Let me know what you think. But until next Sunday, or if you join us on Saturday night, Rumble, Saturday Night Free for All, Killer Carl, myself, and Tyler or if you want to join me next Sunday at 7 p.m. And I realize not everybody has this much time to spend on a Sunday night sitting there listening to some old fat guy ramble. But you can pop in and hang out for a little bit and pop out. Whatever's good for you guys. But until next Sunday, I'm James. This is Empty Pockets Garage, aka Jimmy Pockets. Till next time, I'm out of here.